Well, welcome everybody, and thank you all for coming. This is really, I feel very honored to see so many people here tonight. Um, this is a topic that's near and dear to my heart as a chaplain, spiritual health practitioner. I see a lot of people, and not only near end of life, but all through their lives, and especially when they're having very difficult times with difficult diseases. And what I noticed is that so many people are suffering from grief. And I always thought was grief was really associated with the loss of a loved one. But I've really come to know that grief is for the loss of so many more things. So there's three things that I would like you to get out of this evening. If you don't remember anything more that is said here, number one, that there is a wide scope of losses that we all experience almost every day, and that we grieve these losses, but unfortunately, we don't have the tools. We don't have the structure anymore to really handle grief. So I want to talk about that. First of all, the types of grief that we all experience. And then I want to talk about how we can start developing these tools and what we can do in our own practices to be able to start to process all of this grief that each of us experiences and holds and carries with us all the time. And so that's the second thing, is really how to develop these skills. And the third thing is that I want to make the case, and that's a case that Francis Weller so eloquently put in his book. This is called The Wild Edge of Sorrow. If you ever have a chance to read one book that is inspiring and that is so well written, I'm going to read you a few passages tonight. He writes so beautifully, and really, you really get an understanding of the different types, not only of grief, but just how to live life, and what his experience is as a psychologist and somebody who deals a lot with grief, is that the way to heal grief is through ritual and through community. So I want to make that case tonight, how important ritual and community is, and explain what those two things are. So the format tonight, we're going to just start with a century meditation, and then we're going to start to. I like to do it interactive. I like to ask questions. I like everybody to respond, because I believe we know all this, right? I'm not going to really say anything new other than to put it in a way that makes sense, hopefully. So we can all kind of work at this together. And then after that, we'll have a deeper healing. I want to do a healing meditation, one that utilizes a number of things, including ritual and including visualization and including a deep. It's a type of prayer, but it's a prayer that allows us to let go of things, and you'll see what that is. Okay. So let's start with just a century meditation. So I just invite everybody just to find a comfortable spot on their chair, and just making sure that your feet are firmly planted on the ground if you can reach the floor, and that your buttocks are being supported by the base of the chair, and your back is being supported by the back of the chair. And just allow your hands just to either lie on your thighs, either palms up or palms down, whatever feels comfortable. Just taking your attention to the tip of the nostrils to see if you can inhale from the tip of the nostrils all the way up to that point between your eyebrows called the eyebrow center. Just a long, slow inhalation. And then exhale from the eyebrow center back to the tip of the nostrils, a long, slow exhalation. And next time you inhale, just allow every vertebrae in your back to slowly rise up as you inhale. And as you exhale, allow each vertebrae in your back to come down one upon the other so they rest upon your hips. And the next time you inhale, just allow your shoulders to rise all the way up. And as you exhale, just bring your shoulders back and down so that your shoulders rest upon your hips. And the next time you inhale, allow each vertebrae in your back to slowly rise up. And as you exhale, allow each vertebrae, on your neck to slowly rise up. And as you exhale, allow each vertebrae in your neck to come down one upon the other so it rests upon your shoulders. And the next time you inhale, allow your head to slowly rise up. And as you exhale, allow your head to rest upon your shoulders so that you have a relatively straight back. And again, just taking your attention to the tip of the nostrils. See if you can inhale from the tip of the nostrils all the way up to that point between your eyebrows called the eyebrow center. A long, slow inhalation. And then exhaling from the eyebrow center back to the tip of the nostrils. A long, slow exhalation. And try that one more time, inhaling from the tip of the nostrils all the way up to that point between your eyebrows of your long, slow inhalation. And then exhaling from that point between your eyebrows back to the tip of the nostrils, a long, slow exhalation. And the next time you inhale, just notice that the breath is slightly cool and dry as you inhale. And as you exhale from the eyebrow center back to the tip of the nostrils, just notice the breath is slightly warm and moist. Try that one more time, inhaling from the tip of the nostrils all the way up to that point between your eyebrows, noticing the breath is slightly cool and dry. And as you exhale from the eyebrow center back to the tip of the nostrils, notice the breath is slightly warm and moist. And just notice when you inhale from the tip of the nostrils all the way up to the point between your eyebrows, that when the breath touches that point between your eyebrows, it actually calms the mind, which in turn calms the nervous system, which in turn calms your whole body. So just continue to breathe and relax. Breathe and relax. Now, just take a moment to allow your awareness to be soft, open, and curious. And just allow something to come up inside you as an answer to the question, what is it in my heart that most needs healing? Again, just think, feel, or imagine. What is it in my heart that most needs healing? And just allow yourself to think, feel, or imagine that you have everything inside you and around you to allow your heart to do that type of healing. And just sit quietly just for a moment and allow whatever is in your heart that needs to be healed and that can be healed to begin the process of healing. When you're ready, just slowly allow the light to come in as you open your eyes. You just want to maybe take a little stretch, just stretch your hands above your head and your feet out, pointing with your toes and then your heels, taking a deep breath. And then exhale down. Okay. Welcome. Welcome back to High Space. So, what is grief? How would you explain what grief is? Yes. Exactly. Beautiful, beautiful. When you're experiencing grief, that's exactly one of the things you might experience: emptiness, not knowing what's going on, confusion, right? And what is grief? Like, grief is about loss. So when we experience loss, the process that humans participate in, we all have this ability, is grief. And grief is what helps to us to be able to process that loss. So what type of losses are we talking about? Loss of a parent, absolutely. Loss of a loved one, right? What other type? That's very good. What other types of losses do we have? Loss of an idea, beautiful. Can you say more about that? Because that's really interesting.
Well, I think loss of a perception of something in the world that all of a sudden gets broken, and they're in a place sort of not knowing what's up with it. That sort of way of looking, that perspective in the world has been challenged or shattered.
That's really good. That's one of the gates, and we'll get back to that. So a loss of a dream, of an idea, of an ideal, right? Excellent. Somebody had their hand up over here. A loss of lifestyle, absolutely a loss of life. That's huge. Anybody who has any type of illness will tell you the loss of their lifestyle is gigantic. Thank you. What else? Loss. Well, there's two things there: loss of health, absolutely, and loss of identity. You know, when we aren't the person who we thought we were. Very good. What other losses? These are really good. Yes.
Environment.
Huge. Environment, absolutely. That's another one of the gates. Is environment, and also just what's happening in the world. All these terrible tragedies and wars and stuff. And we'll get into that because it's really important to understand how these things come up.
Climate change, loss of ocean.
Habitat, forests, all that stuff, all the stuff that's happening now. People are really feeling it. Like it's part of us that's getting lost out there. Very good. Yes.
Which kind of associates with like the loss of the driver's license, loss of
beautiful, yeah.
Again, we're loss of community.
Absolutely. And we can go on. These are really good. One more, just one more loss, and you can't go wrong. Yeah. Wow, that's a big one. Yeah. Okay, so we're going to get into a few more losses, but you kind of get the idea that it's really widely encompassing, the type of losses that we have. So sorrow is and deep. Grief is really deep sorrow. When we experience a loss of something and we feel that deep sorrow, that's what grief is. And then grief is not just feeling sorrow, it's feeling all sorts of emotions. It's going through a whole cater of feelings, emotions, and even, you know, how we physically, emotionally, psychologically, and spiritually. Every aspect of our being is being affected by the loss. And it's the grief that we have to go through that you feel it. and you experience it and you process these losses, that's what grief is. So it's a natural, healthy reaction. We as humans need to go through a grieving process, and we've developed ways of doing it. Traditionally, and I'm talking now about Indigenous people, and we're talking 50,000 or even 100,000 years ago as humans were developing, there was lots of losses, right? All the time, losing their loved ones, losing habitat, losing whatever. And they learned to be able to cope with these losses really well. And those traditions have been passed on in the religions as well. How to cope with losses, how, doing burials, doing, support groups and doing all sorts of things. And because we're no longer going to church, we're no longer, going to synagogue or to mosque the way we used to, we're losing those traditions and those rituals. And so we are in a crisis today as a result. We don't have the tools that we used to have to support one another in our grieving process. So that's what I really want to talk about tonight is what can we do given the restraints and constraints we have. I just want to read you this one thing. Okay, this is again from Francis Weller in this beautiful book. This is what he writes about grief. He says, grief is about its many moods and movements, shapes and textures. It's about how sorrow carves riverbeds in our soul, deepening us as it flows in and out of our lives. There's something familiar about the rising and falling of loss, how it takes us below the surface of our lives and works on us in some alchemic way. We are remade in times of grief, broken apart and reassembled. It is hard, painful, and unbidden work. No one goes in search of loss, rather it finds us and reminds us of the temporary gift we have been given, these few sweet breaths we call life. Wow. Every time I read that, that's what grief is. We have to take this real hardship, this loss. We are broken apart by it. And our job is to reassemble ourselves into the new me. That's not an easy job. When you've lost something that's really near and dear, be it a loved one who, and I see this all the time, especially at our age, where the couple has worked their whole lives and they have this dream of we're going to go traveling and doing this and that. And then one of them gets this terrible disease, right? And the dream is shattered and the relationship is really, difficult. And then one of them dies. And then to lose that, literally, you're broken apart. Everything that you stood for, everything that, you did is now gone. How do you resurrect yourself in that situation? Grief both acknowledges what has been lost and ensures we don't forget what must be remembered. Key. Just because we lost it doesn't mean we don't remember it, right? Or that to get over it, we forget about the past. We forget. No, it becomes integrated in us. That's the key. We have to learn a way to integrate that loss back into us that works, right? In other words, how to take that loved one and still they're a part of our memories, a part of our being in essence, but they're not with us anymore. And we can't do the same things anymore, obviously. So it's how to be with those memories and that loss and carry on in a new way. That's what the grieving process is about. No one escapes suffering in this life. None of us are exempt from loss, pain, illness, or death. We're all going to get it. It's like taxes. We all have to pay it. So this is part of life. And that's why it's so important to learn how to deal with all sorts of losses and not just when the big one comes. Right? And this is really what it's all about. and we're going to get to in a second why meditation is so important, because it is the foundation to allow us to hold, to be the container, to allow us to do some of that processing. So let's talk about Francis Weller's 5 gates. So we're going to talk about each one of them. The first one, all that we love, we will lose. Yeah. It's the impermanence of life. Nothing is static. Nothing ever stays the same. Everything we love, we will lose. Does it mean not to love? Right? Because you're going to lose it? No, we're human. We need to love. We need to continue to love and find ways to love, even when the love of our life is not the same person or is not with us anymore, right? So it's kind of this curriculum of life is what grief is all about, how to deal with these things. So it's that universal feeling of loss when we lose somebody, someone, or a way of being that we deeply cared for. And it's confronting that impermanence. Consider that everything is a gift and nothing lasts. It's what Francis Weller tells us. I want to read you a poem. He just happens to refer to this poem in his book, but it's actually from the 11th century. This is a rabbi in Rome. His name is Emmanuel of Rome, that wrote this poem. It is beautiful, and it really expresses it really well. It's on page 24. For those who have died, ele eskera, these we remember. 'Tis a fearful thing to love, what death can touch, to love, to hope, to dream, and oh, to lose. A thing for fools this, love, but a holy thing, to love what death can touch. For your life has lived in me, your laugh once lifted me, your word was a gift to me. To remember this brings painful joy. 'Tis a human thing, love, a holy thing, to love what death can touch. Wow. It's a human thing to love what death can touch. So, how do we carry on? Right? When we know that everything that we love is going to leave us at some point, or we're going to leave them. So yesterday, I was with a patient in the hospital, and she had really serious gastro problems, and she's been sick now for a while. And of course, when I first walked into the room, I said, I'm from spiritual care, and how you doing? She said, I'm fine. I don't need any help. Goodbye. I said, well, okay, that's fine. I just want you to know that spiritual care, it's not just about religion. It's about connection and relationships. It's the connections you have and the relationship you have with those connections, your friends, your family, your loved ones, and God or something greater. And it's those connections and relationships that are going to help you through this. So I'm here to see how you're doing. Well, then she opened up, told me that, and I asked her, I said, when did this start? When did the problem start? Oh, it's when my son told me he's getting divorced. And now the whole thing is she's afraid of losing her son. She's afraid of losing her grandson, who's 7. And the grandson's going to end up with the wife, and she goes back home, which is far away. All this stuff. The point is that there's all these losses, and we need to learn how to grieve them. But when we don't have the right tools, they end up doing other things to us, like pathology. They end up inside us and they start to cause problems, illnesses. I can't tell you, it's a very high percentage of people that I talk to, and I ask them, okay, when did this start? They can pinpoint it. Yeah, I had this accident. I lost my job. there's certain instances where, you know, that stress level has been reached, and something tipped it over, and now they're feeling it as an illness, as pathology. So it's really important that we learn how to deal with these things. Be proactive. Okay. So the second gate, so that was the first gate. Everything that we love we'll lose. The second gate is the places that have not known love, addressing our own neglected or wounded inner parts. What do you think that's about? The places that have not known love, those neglected or wounded inner parts. I'll tell you a story. This is his story. He's in the kitchen. This is Francis Weller, and he had a son. His son was 6 or 7 years old, or 5 or whatever, and he's cooking eggs in the kitchen, and his son runs into the kitchen. Hey, Daddy, I got to show you something. Get out of here. I'm just in the middle of dinner. Leave me alone. And the kid runs upstairs. He's devastated. All he wanted to do is show his daddy something that he had. And Francis realized, oh my God, what did I do? He goes upstairs. He finds the kid hiding under the bed, and he says, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to do that. It's my fault. It's on me. And the boy says to him, Daddy, I didn't think you loved me. You know, so things happen to us when we're little kids. It happens to us all through life. When somebody says something or does something, they don't even understand, you know, they didn't mean it. They didn't mean to tell us to get out of there, or, you know, but that's what we heard, that they didn't love me. And you get shut down. That's the thing. You get shut down. So parts of us, and this part of this little kid who's really excited to show his dad something that he did, or, you know, whatever it was, that's shut down. He's not going to do that anymore. He's not going to get, you know, there's that part in him that's saying, don't do that with Daddy anymore, you know, because he doesn't love you. He doesn't want that. So we can think of millions of examples of when we've been shut down as kids, and, you know, in school, and all sorts of places. And we lose our voice. We lose our ability to shine in those areas that we could have shone. So we grieve it. We grieve the loss of that part. And so part of the process that we want to go through is retrieve those pieces that we've lost, to recognize that they're there. And it's through meditation that, you know, when you talk to your inner child, that you can start to see, okay, these are the places and the things and the parts of me that have been shut down, that have been shamed in the past. And, you know, he says, we cannot grieve for something that we feel is outside the circle of worth. So in other words, if a part has been shamed or shut down, we don't feel it's worth anything. So how can we grieve it? You know, how can we even retrieve it? So it makes it even harder. You know, we feel sorrow, but we can't grieve because we don't feel we're worth it, or that part is worth, you know, grieving. And he also talks about trauma. Trauma being that part that shakes the soul, that is inherent in every being, a source of suffering, eating away at our worth, undermining our ability to step fully into our lives. So when we experience a trauma, and don't forget, trauma now is not just a huge accident. It's every little time that our system is unable to cope. So we have this flight or fright, you know, there's other reactions, but the point is that we have this kind of area that we can live in. In other words, we can take things that happen and we can deal with things, but when it gets either above or below that bandwidth, that's when we experience trauma. That's when our system shuts down, or we run, or we can't deal with things anymore. Okay, and those are little traumas, and then they add up. So, and then the littlest thing starts to affect us. And when we're traumatized and we're shut down, we can't do anything, right? So what Francis Weller is saying is that we no longer have the ability to step back into our lives. So again, those things are shut down and we grieve. We need to grieve them. We need to acknowledge them. I want to read you another poem. That talks about this specific thing. So this is David White, and this is from a Coleman's Bed, a poem that he wrote. Be taught now among the trees and rocks how the discarded is woven into shelter. Learn the way things hidden and unspoken slowly proclaim their voice in the world. Find that inward symmetry to all outward appearances. Apprentice yourself to yourself. Begin to welcome back all you sent away and be a new annunciation. Make yourself a door through which to be hospitable, even to the stranger in you. So that's the grieving process, how to open those doors inside you that have been shut. Be the apprentice. Learn how to start opening those doors back up. Be taught now among the trees and rocks how the discarded is woven into shelter. Learn the way things hidden and unspoken slowly proclaim their voice in the world. Find that inward symmetry to all outward appearances. Apprentice yourself to yourself. Begin to welcome back all you sent away. Be a new annunciation. Make yourself a door through which to be hospitable, even to the stranger in you. This is such a heartfelt book. So the third is the sorrows of the world, the global and environmental suffering, exactly as you mentioned. This gate opens to the broader spectrum of collective sorrow that we feel. We all have different philosophies in terms of understanding or theologies, but a common one is that we are all one. We are all connected, and we're connected not only to one another, but we're connected to all the animals and all the plants and everything on this planet Earth. That Earth and Earth in turn is connected to, the rest of the universe, as are we, right? And that when it's like in our body, when we have a sore arm or, it affects the rest of the body. When we have an infection somewhere, it infects the rest of the body. We lose the energy, we lose, whatever. So it's the same thing with the world. It's crying out now. And there's lots of cries, and we hear it because we're connected. It's just part of our being. How can we not be affected by when people are being, tortured and killed and all sorts of terrible things happening to them, and when our rainforests and our forests are being cut down and burnt, and and the oceans are being polluted, and so we are connected. I was just going to tell you about quantum physics and how there's a whole kind of area that they're actually showing that through quantum physics that consciousness perhaps resides outside of the body, and that in the sense that if consciousness is out there, that we're all connected to that, which is very similar to we're all connected, that our souls or whatever are connected. So it's just interesting that science is coming along to where theology and spirituality and some religions, have been there for a long time. But sometimes we need science to kind of bolster that. And if you want to talk about that later, I certainly can. But what I do want to do at this point is there's a beautiful rabbinic midrash. And a rabbinic midrash is, okay, and this is from Pirkei Eliezer, which was written probably over 2,000 years ago. So these are stories that rabbis would tell, kind of parables or whatever, to make sense of the world, and they would tell their congregations. But this is a beautiful one. It's called The Six Voices That Reverberated Around the World, But Were Never Heard. And the first voice is when this beautiful fruit tree in its glory, full of fruit, was chopped down and destroyed. There was a voice that reverberated around the world and was never heard. The second one is when a snake molts its skin. You know, a snake doesn't have a choice. It grows and it needs to molt the skin. And when the skin is molted, actually, it takes away diseases and germs, and it allows the snake to rejuvenate, right? And then start again. But the snake feels a loss. When you lose that skin, there's a loss, right? It's part of him, and now it's gone. But we don't ever hear or think about that as a loss, right? Just like when we see a tree cut, okay, yes, it is a loss, but wow, it's a huge loss, not just to the tree, but everyone around, that relies on that tree. The third loss is when, or the third cry is when a baby comes out of the womb. So yeah, the baby cries and stuff, but do we really know what the baby is going through when it's coming from inside the womb, that place where it's been coddled and it's warm and it's safe and, and then coming out into this cold world and light and all that. So just that shock. The fourth one is when a woman loses her virginity. I never thought of that. It's a loss. It's a loss of their childhood. It's a loss of a way of being. And all of a sudden now that person is entering in a new world. I never really thought it that way. And again, the whole notion here is that, do we really think about the losses like the tree had, or the people have around the tree, or the snake, or when the baby was born, or the virgin? And the fifth loss is a divorced woman. We're talking patriarchal societies that don't really care a lot about women, but the divorced woman and her loss. And of course, the sixth loss is death. We really hear what's going on, or when somebody dies, that moment of death. But then at the end of the story, it says, everything will be okay because on the other side, there's somebody there to take the soul and make sure it's okay. Anyways, so it's just, the rabbis realized over 2,000 years ago that there are all these losses that we just don't think about, but they are losses, and we have to honor them. We have to have a way to honor them and process them, because it affects everybody differently. Okay, so the fourth way, or the fourth gate, is when we expected and did not receive our unmet hopes and dreams. What you said, Mara. It's a huge one. We all have dreams, not just for ourselves, but our children, our organizations, our, whatever we're doing, so I want our kids to be not just happy and succeed. We want them to flourish. We want them to be out there with joy, but when those dreams and hopes don't come about, that's a loss. Right? And what about the kid? They had their dreams and losses. And all of a sudden, it didn't come about. They didn't get accepted to the school they wanted to. They didn't, make it on the hockey team, or, whatever it is. But these are all losses. And even though the kid might say, okay, it's okay, I'll try again next year. Wow. So these, we need to recognize them as losses, and to hold them, and to be able to help who's ever going through that to process it. We can talk a lot about that. Let's go to the next one, which is, this is the fifth one. This is the ancestral grief. The inherent pains from past generations. What is that about? Anyone want to venture a guess here? Please. Exactly. Anyone want to say more? Because you're right on the right track.
body, we actually have capacity to change our genetic, but we carry it. We carry the grief, literally.
We carry the grief in our genes of our ancestors. Okay, so what you're saying about grandparents and stuff, when, you know, the way our grandparents raised our parents and the way that our parents raised us, and sometimes it's very subtle. Sometimes it's not even, they don't even realize it. They say things, they do things, but they're carrying, carrying their grief forward onto us. We feel it, the losses and whatever they went through. And what Debbie just said here, which is really important, is that it actually gets inculcated in our genes. You know, so my relatives, and actually everybody here in this room, we all of our ancestors have left their land. I'm assuming none of you are sorry, even Indigenous people, right? We have taken away everything from them in terms of their connection with the land. But what I'm saying is that everybody here, or most people here in this land, we've come from elsewhere. We've come into this land. So our ancestors have lost the contact with their language, with their culture, with their traditions, with their land, everything that connected them. And the Indigenous people, we took all that away from them when we came here. We took their land and we took their culture and we took their language away. So we do that to each other. But the point is that we all are carrying all of these things in our genes, this grief. So I just want to say, I did this retreat about a month ago where I wanted to go into my grief. And the big thing that came out was the ancestral grief. Wow. I knew I knew that my relatives came, out of the Ukraine and Russia and experienced pogroms and had to leave, and their experiences of going across Europe and getting to America, getting to Canada were horrendous. But I didn't realize to what extent we carry those, and I'm sure everybody has stories, right? So again, to acknowledge that that's the deep work, that we need to go through in terms of our grieving process. Okay. So, what we're doing. Okay, so the next part is how to process grief. And conventionally, this is the process. And then I just want to take you through how Francis Weller, and specifically in this book, gives us some really good pointers in how to do things. So this is the process of dealing with grief. Number one, acknowledge the loss. And a lot of the griefs that we just talked about, we don't even know about, right? We don't know about all the ancestral losses. We don't know, or just aren't aware of, and we're not even aware of some of these losses that we experienced as little kids when we were shamed or, told not to do that. And, we never did those things anymore. So to be able to be aware and acknowledge, that's the first step. The second one is, once you've acknowledged it, to be able to speak it out, to be able to have a safe container and be able to speak it out and then process it. And it's that safe container most of us are lacking. And I'll explain the safe container part and how we might create that. And then the third one is to release it, is to release that loss, to release, so that you can then, the fourth one is create a new story, the new me, without that you no longer have that part of you. Okay, so that's so acknowledge, speak it out in a safe container, release, and then a new reality, a new me, a new story. So those are the four. Okay, so what does Francis Weller say? He says, to heal grief, first step is to create a relationship with grief. And how do you do that? You start by holding it softly and warmly, which requires enormous psychic strength. It's a lot to hold, especially just think of one loss, just to hold that, but all the losses that we're all holding, that takes a lot of strength, a lot of psychic strength. But we need to approach it with softness. It's like that inner child that we asked it to come in, and we want to give it love, and we want to give it attention, and we want to give it caring, right? Loving kindness. But we need to fortify our interior ground by developing a practice that will sustain us over time. So that's where meditation comes in. It can be a number of different practices. For me, it's meditation. For me, it's building that strong inner part through my meditative practices to be able to hold and be the initial part of that container for all this grief. So, and the practice can be yoga, the practice can be singing, the practice can be, music. I mean, whatever you can go into that kind of, it's almost like an altered state, right? Where you can get in touch with your soul. It's the soul is really you want to be able to communicate with, and it's these traumas and these shameful acts and all these things that happen to us and these losses that prevent us, right? They kind of create like it's like an onion, right? The soul's in there, but there's all these layers that have been built up. So it's a practice that we need to develop to be able to peel away those onions so that we can get into the middle and back into to who we are. So we need a strong foundation. The next thing is grief is not passive. It implies an ongoing practice of deepening, attending, and listening. So this act of devotion and for me, it's practicing loving kindness. When I walk into a room with a patient, to open up my heart and to truly be there with the person with an open heart and with compassion, with love. And when we are able to do that, according to Francis Weller, it matures us so that we can then be elders for our community, for others. In other words, it's this process of developing this compassion, this devotion, so that we can hold others and help them in their times of difficulty, right? So it's being able to utilize and understand how grief works, be able to work through our own grief, but then to be there for others. Grief opens up a sacred space. When we approach our grief with reverence, grief can provide a portal to the soul. Okay, so this is where I take it in terms of grief is really something sacred. When we're grieving and we want to heal that grieving, that grief, that loss, we can't do it alone. We need lots of support. So some people turn to God for part of that support, turn to community, and Francis Weller argues that community is the ultimate support that we need. We can't do it alone, and we need to have a community literally around us to help us through this, so that when you're going through deep grief, you can't do anything. You can't make meals. You can't look after yourself. That's what communities are for, to help people that are going through these really difficult times, to make sure they're fed, to make sure that they're clothed, make sure that their kids are, going to school, whatever, and that we as a community can help them. And we've lost a lot of those communities. So you can't go through these difficult times and losses without that. And the idea of then the sacredness is that when we create a sacred space that we can hold, then this grief, we can hold these losses, is really important. So he does a really good job of explaining ritual. And I'm just going to read you his definition. And this is the best definition of ritual that I've ever come across. Ritual is any gesture done with emotion and intention that attempts to connect with transpersonal energies for the purposes of healing and transformation. So when I normally think of ritual, I'm thinking, the priest comes down the aisle with the smoke and, there's a certain pomp and circumstance and a certain way of doing things. And we get it, right? It feels, when you go into that situation, it feels, wow, there's something happening here. But what he is saying is that these gestures done with emotion, intent, and intention, what they do is that they connect us with something beyond ourselves, connects us with these transpersonal energies, he calls them. I call them, there's a lot of really strong energies out there that are healing. And what we want to do is we want to bring them in and we want to utilize those energies together with community to be able to do the healing that needs to be done. I'm not sure if you've heard about getting off topic here, angels. I'm really into angels. But Angel Raphael is the angel of healing. And this is an energy that we can actually tap into. If you go online and you look for, Angel Raphael healing meditations, there's a 5-minute one. It is really powerful. I have actually healed things with that little 5-minute meditation. Like these are energies that are out there that, in this emerald green light that you can actually feel and see, it is really powerful. We have the ability to connect. So this is what ritual is. When I do my meditations and when we hold space for people, I'm not sure if you can see it, but so what he explains is that ritual is a wake up to the old mind in us. It puts it to work. The collective unconscious. It allows us to connect with this collective unconsciousness. It understands things like candlelight, colors, nature, beauty, rhythm. We get ritual as human beings, right? Because our ancestors have done this for eons. And when we set fire, when we set beautiful objects out in front of us and pieces of nature, just give an example. I'm not sure if you can see what this is. This is a seed that I got from Colombia. It's magnificent. If you want to come here afterwards and just touch it, it's so smooth and beautiful. Sorry, it's a seed, right? It's a beautiful object. This is one of the most beautiful and powerful rocks I've ever experienced. This is a hydrate agate. There's ancient water locked inside here, and that this water's healing, right? And you can activate the water in here and really feel the healing powers. If actually, if you want to just take a look at it, if you pick it up and you look at, there's an image in there. It looks like, this goddess, kind of in capes, kind of flying away. But it's really cool. It's a beautiful thing. All I'm trying to say, it's beautiful. And it evokes in us beauty, opens things up for us. It allows us to connect with whatever those healing energies are, or, however you want to say. Beauty connects us with something. So you have these objects that when you look at and when you bring their energies in, can actually be healing. This one here, this is basalt. It is from the Sea of Galilee. The waters of the Sea of Galilee are really healing waters. They're ancient waters. And when you go in there, you can feel that. So this is a rock that has those healing qualities. Anyways, you can come here, take a look. But the point is that I like to have these in front of me when I do my meditations, when I do my healing, and always have a candle lit, and just make it as beautiful and wonderful as possible. And anything you can get from nature, like look at this beautiful shell. this is nature. and to, there's so much beauty and stuff around us. I just encourage you to, when you're doing your healing, when you're feeling down and you're creating this meditation practice to build your foundation, make it a special space. Make it a space that, the divine would want to be invited into and these energies. So I just invite you to think about that. Okay. Yeah. Maybe we should do this. Yeah, there's one more thing I just want to say. So ritual opens us to a vast and more enchanted world, fostering a link to the great mystery. And he writes, rituals elicit a certain vibration to connect to the sacred or to the divine. This pitch activates the psyche. We cannot do this work alone. We are creatures of ritual which resonate deep in our bones, a language older than words. Right? And he just gets it. And the way he describes it is just so beautiful. And then the other thing is, it's a reparative function. There's this reparative function to ritual. And this is how he describes it. It sutures the tears in the soul that occur in daily rounds of living. It allows us to attune to the rhythm of the soul and not to the machine. Rituals help us remember and reestablish our inner rhythms in accordance with our soul. So it just kind of opens up the heart. It opens up the soul. It opens us up to be able to get back to our true selves, right? And so that we can do the work and reintegrate all these parts that we've lost and be able to hold the sorrows that we're feeling for the world, for the environment, for all those people in need. And lastly, ritual invites the denied and forgotten aspects of the psyche to show up, those abandoned parts of who we are. It provides a potent space to hold the intensity of emotions associated with these aspects of the soul. Ritual helps to make the repressed visible. Yeah, it helps to make the repressed visible. It's very powerful. And he also says that ritual is a maintenance practice. So by doing ritual, we kind of maintain ourselves. We build ourselves up, right? So it's really important. Okay. So maybe we can just, at this point, open it up for questions. And then I want to do this deep meditation, healing meditation with you. And that'll bring us to the end of the hour. So it's 8:05. And so maybe let's just see how we do. 5 minutes for questions, because this will take the meditation itself will take about 20 minutes.
And then you said transpersonal energy. That really fascinates me a little bit. Is there any way to sort of expand on that?
Yeah. So what I was trying to say as well is that there's these energies that exist out there, positive and negative, and so any type of energy that's beyond our personhood, right? And we feel them. We feel them in the air. We feel good vibes. We feel sometimes negative vibes, right? So these are transpersonal things. So for me, like when we talk about angels, like the healing energy of Raphael, it's an energy. We like to maybe, see it in kind of an individual or some sort of entity out there, but it's probably some sort of energy source. And that's why I like science, because now we're starting to get more and more instrumentations to be able to measure these energies, and they're just not,
I haven't heard it in that language before. That's why it's good to put words to it too. Exactly.
Yeah. Things a lot of us feel, right? Yeah. So call them transpersonal energies. That's a nice term. Any other questions?
Rick, I wondered if you could talk to the fact you talked about the psychic way of dealing with loss and stress. And the other side is the somatic way.
Mm.
In other words, all of us face judgments, criticism, small losses, big losses every day. It can be very difficult at times to think your way out of it because you are the sense of self that is suffering and you are what judges the sense of self.
Mm-hmm.
And so I wonder if you could talk to the valuable way of really, which is mindfulness, that capacity to be present with what is through your body. Because your body you can't rationalize with your body, but what you have the capacity to do is to feel in a very physical way what grief feels like.
Mm.
So you're not trying to negotiate with it. You're simply experiencing a physical sensation that is not the sense of self. And so when you are in grief or sadness or anger, can you turn to it, but can you allow yourself to be with the body and the physical sensation of what you're experiencing? And the critical part is to sustain what you sense, surrender to it until it comes to stillness. Because when we are in grief or sadness or pain, it feels permanent. It's never going to leave. But when you come to the physicality of anything, it will change. It will end. Mm-hmm. Can you talk to the value of the body holding grief?
Like the whole class. A year course. You know,
that's just another valuable avenue.
For me,
mm-hmm.
For most of my life, I lived from here up. I didn't have any feeling down here. I mean, I didn't realize I had, until I started yoga, to realize that I really had a body, and then in that body, there's a heart and there's a gut, and they actually have wisdom and they have knowledge, and and I found out that the heart has 42,000 neurons where it has memory, and the memory in the heart is things like gratitude and love. It's all these divine qualities that that we want to emulate and work on. They're all in here. I never knew that until it was my meditation practice and my yoga that allowed me to go inward to start to feel that, oh my God, there's a whole universe in here, and I don't need this part up here, right? To get in the way, just to feel what the wisdom and everything that's being held in here, this container, right? And in a way, what's going on here just gets in the way. So to me, that's the greatest part of my practice, is to get out of my head and into my body, and specifically opening my heart up and my gut. These are the two areas of knowing that are available to us and can actually help us in our processes, whether it's dealing with grief or processing or whatever it is. The wisdom that they hold is far greater than here. For me. But I think for a lot of us, because I believe when we open up our heart, we're actually opening it up into this greater, it's beyond us, it's transpersonal, right? There's a receptor there. And
we have to be alert to what our body tells us too, because we don't always notice what our body is saying to us. And I had a very vivid experience of this once when I was feeling low about something many years ago, and I went for a massage, and the massage therapist began to massage my shoulders, and I burst into tears. And it was such a surprise. And we tend to sometimes just dismiss. That wasn't too subtle, but there are many more subtle body manifestations that occur that we often just let go or don't notice or don't attend to. And I think that's partly what you're getting at, Phil, is how important it is just to be alert to what the body is speaking to you and pay attention to the little things, because we can't always go looking for it. It sometimes has to show itself to us, but we have to be receptive
to what our bodies tell us. Sometimes we can be surprised.
I would go a step further just in saying that trauma we carry physically. It physically resides in the body and usually ends up in that area that's either deeply affected or is the weakest. And so that's where, and then if we don't deal with the trauma, it can end up in, again, pathology.
There was a hand that went up.
Right here.
I can teach you. I can help. I can teach you. Frequency.
Mm.
When you stand in it,
Yeah, just a simple word like sensations.
Yeah.
So the comment was just for our audience that will be online, this is a teacher of yoga who asks that people notice the sensations in their bodies as they assume various poses. Am I getting this right? And it's a simple language. What sensations are there? Yes. Yeah. Right.
Mhm.
So softening the mental talk and all the cognitive busyness that's going on so that you can tune into what's physically felt on the senses, not in the brain.
Yes. Yeah. Okay. So we're going to do the healing meditation, and for this meditation, being a rabbi, and part of the ritual here that we're going to create is we're going to create a safe container, and that ritual. I have a prayer shawl that I utilize every day in my practice, and we wear a kippah, which allows me to know that God is always above. And when I pray, I always put that on. And no, you can turn this down, please. And this is it's called a talit, a prayer shawl. And there's a certain prayer that I say before I put it on. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kitanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu v'tatef b'tzitzit. Bless you, O Lord, ruler of the universe, the one who commanded us to participate in the tzitzit. The tzitzit are these strings at the end that we're supposed to leave the corners for the poor. So in other words, if we have a cultivated area of land, the corners are to be left so that the poor can take those to feed them. And it's to remind us that, that we not only do things for ourselves, but we do things for community. So if everybody can, again, we have all these beautiful objects from nature, seeds and rocks, and there's a candle here. And meditation. And just one other thing. So there's going to be a prayer that I'm going to say. It's non-denominational, it's non-religious, but it's very powerful. I'll say it first, so you'll hear what it is. And if you feel that it speaks to you, I'm going to say it over again very slowly, and you can say the words in your mind's eye, not out loud, in your mind's eye, and see how that feels. Okay. And then there's going to be some visualization involved here, and just opening up our different energy channels so that we can receive some of the healing. Okay. So again, just sitting up in your chair, making sure that your feet are supported by the floor, and your buttocks are supported by the base of the chair, and your back is supported by the back of the chair. And your hands can just be on your laps, either palms up or palms down, whatever you feel comfortable. And just take your attention to the tip of the nostrils and see if it's possible to inhale from the tip of the nostrils all the way up to that point between your eyebrows, a long, slow inhalation. Exhaling from the eyebrow center back to the tip of the nostrils, a long, slow exhalation. And the next time you inhale, just allow each vertebrae in your back to slowly rise up. And as you exhale, allow each vertebrae in your back to come down one upon the other, so they rest upon your shoulders, on your hips. And the next time you inhale, just allow your shoulders to come up and around. And as you exhale, bring your shoulders back and down, so they rest upon your hips. And the next time you inhale, allow each vertebrae in your neck to slowly rise up. And when you exhale, allow each vertebrae in your neck to come down one upon the other, so it rests upon your shoulders. And the next time you inhale, just allow your head to slowly rise up. And as you exhale, allow your head to come down so it rests upon your shoulders as well, so you have a relatively straight back. And again, just taking your attention to the tip of the nostrils. Inhale from the tip of the nostrils all the way up to that point between your eyebrows. A long, slow inhalation. And exhaling from the eyebrow center back to the tip of the nostrils, a long, slow exhalation. And next time you inhale, just notice the breath is slightly cool and dry as you inhale. And when you exhale from the eyebrow center back to the tip of the nostrils, just notice the breath is slightly cool and dry. And next time you inhale from the tip of the nostrils all the way up to that point between your eyebrows, just know when the breath touches that point between the eyebrows, it actually calms the nervous system, which in turn calms the mind, and in turn relaxes the whole body. Now, just bring your attention to your solar plexus, which is the diaphragm, or just below your rib cage, and breathe into your solar plexus and exhale out. This is the place that we hold a lot of tension. So let us breathe in and out of the solar plexus. So next time you inhale into your solar plexus, breathe in calmness. And exhale out any anxiety you might be feeling. And next time you inhale into the solar plexus, breathe in healing. And exhale out any sickness you might be feeling. And next time you breathe into your solar plexus, breathe in hope. And breathe out any despair. Next time, breathe into the solar plexus, joy. And exhale out any sadness you might be feeling. And finally, breathe into your solar plexus, breathe in trust. And breathe out any doubt. And now bringing your attention to your heart area, inhale into your heart area, pure divine love. First of all, into the front of your heart. And then breathe that out into the world. Then again, breathe in pure divine love into the back of your heart area. And then breathe that out into the world. And then breathe into your left and right side of your heart, expanding your heart area as you breathe in that pure divine love And then exhale that pure divine love out into the world. And then again, breathing into the front and the back and the sides of your heart, expanding your heart as much as possible with that pure divine love. And then exhale that out into the world. Now bringing your attention to that point between your eyebrows, breathe in intelligence. And exhale intelligence out into the world. Again, that point between your eyebrows, breathe in wisdom. And exhale wisdom out into the world. And again, into that point between your eyebrows, breathe in discernment. And breathe out discernment out into the world. And then lastly, breathe in acceptance into that point between your eyebrows. And then exhale acceptance out into the world. And now just taking your attention to the top of your head. Breathe in pure divine love into the top of your head, into your whole body. And allow that pure divine love to inculcate every cell of your body as you inhale it in. And then hold it at your breath at the top of your breath. Just allow that pure divine love to go in again, to inculcate every cell, and then exhale it out into the world. Then just continue to breathe and relax. Breathe and relax. And again, just take a moment to allow your awareness to be soft, open, and curious. And allow something to come up inside you as an answer to the question, what is it in me that most needs healing? What is it in me that most needs healing? And again, just think, feel, or imagine that you have everything inside you and around you that you need for healing. And just sit quietly to allow whatever it is that needs to be healed and that can be healed to begin that process of healing. And as you do that, allow your focus to focus your mind, your heart, and your soul on this pure divine light that's emanating from a very, 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 very high source. And just think, feel, or imagine that this pure divine light that emanates from this very high source is enwrapping and enveloping your whole body. And just know that this light is a light of love, a light of compassion, a light of healing, a light of mercy, a light of hope, and also a light of protection. And again, I'm just going to envision, and you can think, feel, or imagine that this golden white divine light, this light of healing, this light of compassion, this light of love, is going inside your body to all those places in need of healing, repairing, and renewing. And specifically to that place that you've identified as the place that needs healing. And then again, just focus your mind, your heart, and your soul on this light. And I would ask you to allow my words to become your words. And this is the prayer that I will first say that you can hear. And then if it speaks to you, I will say it over again. And you can say it to yourself in your mind's eye. Through your blessing, grace, and guidance, through the power of the light that streams from you, may all my negative actions, destructive emotions, and blockages be cleansed, purified, and removed. May I know myself forgiven for all the harm I may have thought and done. May I be granted this purification, and may I be granted peace. And again, if those words speak to you, and say in your mind's eye, through your blessing, grace, and guidance, through the power of the light that streams from you, may all my negative actions, destructive emotions, and blockages be cleansed, purified, and removed. May I know myself forgiven for all the harm I may have thought and done. May I be granted this purification, and may I be granted peace. Just take a moment to allow this prayer and these words to release all of those destructive emotions, harms, and thoughts to be completely released. Just continue to breathe and relax. Breathe and relax. And when you're ready, you can slowly open your eyes. You feel like it, just bringing your hands over your head and stretching out through your fingertips and out through your toes and your heels. Just allow the light to slowly come in and bring yourself back into the room. Just want to thank everybody for being here tonight and helping to contribute. And I guess I'll stay for a few moments if anyone has any questions you want to ask. We covered a lot of ground tonight. And I guess my recommendation would be see if you get a hold of this book. It's really incredible. There's a lot here, and it's just many layers. Yeah.
Rick, it's been an absolute delight. I think a wonderful evening. Thank you very much.